Alright, so year 8. So this is our first video on probability. Okay, so I know you have learned probability in year 7. Okay, so for the first lesson, we will use that for our revision. We need to review the probability language and also some very basic calculations. Okay, so first, let's see what do we mean by probability. So possibly you have learned that in year 7. It's about the chance of study the chance of something occurring. Okay, so let's see. There are some daily life language we use to describe the likelihood of certain events. For example, you might say something is impossible, or you might say something is highly likely, unlikely, even chance. Okay, so there are other ways to say even chance, like we might say 50-50 is another way to describe that even chance. And certain means, okay, it must happen, right? Okay, so for impossible, okay, to certain, so that's too extreme. Okay, right, so there are some events, so let's see what words are we going to use to describe that chance. Okay, the first one, the moon is a full moon during the Christmas Eve. So we know that for every around 27 days, there would be a few days you have a full moon. So it could happen that during the Christmas Eve you might see a full moon during the night, right? But so it's possible, but is it highly likely? No, because every 27 days there will be only a few days you have full moon, possibly only 2 days, right? So let's say, so this one is unlikely. Okay, so second one, there are other stars other than the sun in the universe. Okay, so we know that the sun, we call it, is actually a star in the universe, right? So there are many other stars in the universe, right? So there are other stars. So for this statement, it must be true. So it's certain, it's 100%. People will see a crocodile in the Goose Pond next year. Crocodile, we understand that's in the Goose Pond. Okay, so there should be no crocodile. But is it impossible that for a crocodile to appear in the Goose Pond? We know it's unlikely, but it's not impossible, right? So somehow you might see one, okay, but it's very unlikely. Okay, so it's unlikely, but you can't say it's impossible. Alright, so drawing a letter D from the word Amy. Okay, so there are 3 letters in Amy: A, M, Y. Okay, so there's no such data, no data D in the word Amy. Alright, so it's impossible. So this time it's impossible. Getting a hat after a coin is tossed and caught. Okay, so we know when you flicked a coin, it could be head or the tail on the top, right? So it's half of the chance, so it's even, what we call even chance, right? So that's even chance. Okay, so in our daily life you might use the words like this to describe the probability or the likelihood for something to happen. But in But in mathematics, there are much accurate way to describe the probability, right? So there's some terminology you need to remember. For example, for every probability, there must be a chance experiment. So it's something we can do experiment. Okay, for example, you could toss a die, which is an experiment to see what number do you have. Okay, a trial, just you do once the experiment. For example, you roll the dice once, so that's one trial. Outcome means the result. Outcome just the result. So outcome is the results. For example, if you roll a dice, you got 5, then the outcome is 5. Okay, sample space is include all possible outcomes. For example, if you roll a dice, the all possible outcomes will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So be all of them, right? So that's what we call the sample space. All right, an event is a subset of the sample space. So what do we mean by the subset? Subset just means the sum of the outcomes in the sample space, right? For example, if you want to say the event is getting a number greater than 5, greater than 4, for example, right? So the event include two numbers, 5 and 6. So that's why event means some outcomes. Sample space means all the outcomes, right? Probability. Okay, so in math, probability is a number. Okay, it's a number. It's a numerical representation. So that means you could represent the likelihood by using numbers. Okay, so this is a very important definition. So P bracket event, that means the probability of the event equals number of favorable outcomes divided by total number of outcomes. Okay, so total number of outcomes should be something from the sample space. You need to consider the sample space. That means all the outcomes in the sample space. All right, but for number of favorable outcomes, that's the numerator, which belongs to the event. Okay, so basically it's just about you consider number of outcomes in the event divided by number of outcomes in the sample space. All right. Okay, so let me give you one example. All right, what is the probability of rolling an even number on a 6-sided dice? Okay, so first of all, for this question, there must be an experiment. Okay, so the experiment is about rolling a die, okay, or rolling a 6-sided die. All right, so when you roll a die, that means you need to consider all the outcomes. Okay, so the first step, consider the sample space. Okay, so the sample space means all the outcomes. Okay, so that's all the outcomes. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, then you are going to list all the favorable outcomes. Favorable outcomes means the event, and the event is rolling an even number. Okay, so here's the keyword. What do we mean by even number? Even number means a number divided by 2. Okay, so what are the even numbers? 2, 4, 6. Okay, so how about 1, 3, 5? 1, 3, 5 are called odd number, so we're not going to include odd numbers. We'll only consider even numbers. So the 3 even numbers, 2, 4, 6. Okay, so probability of events, so that's the way we write it. We write like P bracket events equals, so that's just a reminder for the formula. Number of favorable outcome divided by total number of outcome. Number of favorable outcome, how many numbers here? So there are 3 numbers, right? So okay, you see there are 3. Total number of outcomes, how many of them? Should be 6 of them. Okay, so that's why you see 6. Okay, so you use the number of favorable outcomes, that number of outcomes which is satisfy the question. The question is about you are getting an even number, so there are 3 even numbers. So the number of favorable outcomes is 3. The number of but total number of outcomes is about, for this experiment, all the possible outcomes. So there are 6 of them. So it becomes 3 over 6. That's 1 over 2. You need to simplify your answer. Okay, so that's simply for every probability question. There are 5 steps. List the sample space. That means all the outcomes. List all the favorable outcomes, which is the outcome satisfying the question. Write the rule. The rule is always event of a probability event equal number of favorable outcome divided by number of total number of outcomes. Substitute the values. Okay, so you need to count the number of outcomes in the sample space and the number of favorable outcomes, and you just use division, and you need to simplify. All right, so there are 5 steps. Okay, let's see another one. What is the probability rolling a number, okay, greater than 4 on a 6-sided die? Okay, remember what do we mean by 6-sided die? Okay, I might give you a picture to see it, not this one. So this is a 6-sided die. Alright, so the experiment is about rolling a die. Okay, rolling a die. Okay, and the event's number greater than 4. Okay, so let's write first list the sample space. So sample space means all the outcomes, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, favorable outcome, you need number greater than 4. So 4 is not included. It should be 5, 6. So only 2 of them. Write the rule. Probability events equals number of favorable outcomes divided by number of total number of outcomes. Okay, so let's see number of favorable outcomes. How many in the bracket? That 2 numbers. Okay, so it's 2. Total number of outcomes, how many of them? 6. Okay, do we need to simplify the answer? Yes. Alright, okay, so that means you got 1/3 of the chance to roll a number greater than 4. Alright, that makes sense? Alright, okay, what is the probability rolling a multiple of 2, okay, on a 4-sided die? Okay, probability of rolling, so rolling a 4-sided die. So that's the experiments. What's the events you're looking for? Multiple of 2. Okay, so let's think about what doing by 4-sided die. What's the difference between 4-sided die and the 6-sided die? Right? Okay, for a 4-sided die, the shape is like this. Okay, my draw as a reference. Okay, so then actually there's another one right here. Okay, but I might draw just like this. Alright, okay, and then I'm going to see. Alright, okay, and then you got the numbers on it. Okay. Okay. 1, 2. Okay. Oh, okay. On the back of it, possibly is 3. Okay, it's hard to see. And here's another 4. Okay, suppose this is a 4-sided die, right? So for 4-sided die, what's the sample space? So there are 4 possible outcomes, right? So just write the 4 possible outcomes. 1, 2, 3, 4. All favorable outcome. Multiple of 2. Multiple of 2 means what? 2 times 1, which is 2, and 4. Okay, do we have others? No. So there are 4 numbers, but there are only 2 numbers which are multiple of 4, multiple of 2. Okay, write the rule. You've written that. Right, substitute the number which divided by which should be 2 divided by 4, right? So it's 1 over 2. That's it. Okay, so no problem. Okay, move to the next one. Right, so another question is about probability of drawing a letter C from the word COVID. Okay, COVID-19. Okay, so that means this question is quite new. So probability of drawing a letter C from the word COVID. Okay, so think about this. So this experiment is about drawing a letter from a word called COVID. All right. All right. So first, consider what are the sample space? How many possible outcomes by drawing a letter from COVID? Okay, so there are C, O, V, I, D. So there are 5 possible outcomes. Okay, then you need to list all favorable outcomes. So because you are asking for C, so there's only 1 possible outcomes. Right? So the probability, write the rule, and then substitute the number. Okay? Number of favorable outcomes, only 1. Total number of outcomes, 5. 1 over 5. Okay? Do we need to simplify it? No, we can't simplify it further. So that would be the answer, right? Okay, so let's see another one. What is the probability of drawing a spade on a deck of 52 cards? Okay, so what do we mean by drawing from a 52 cards a spade? What do we mean by spade? What do we mean by 52 cards? Okay, let's give you a picture to look at. Right? So right here are 52 cards. Okay, so there are 4 different what we call suits. Okay, 4 different suits: diamond, spade, heart, club. Okay, so there are 4 types. All right, and for each suit of the cards, you have ace. A means 1 actually, up to 10, and then you got 3 face cards: jack, okay, and queen, and the king. All right, okay, so you see, okay, so spade, how many spades are here? So should be 13. Ace to 10, that 10 and 3 face cards, so there are 13 of them. All right, so remember this. All right, okay, so let's say list the sample space. We can't list it, that too many, so we just write 52 cards there. That too many, we can't draw it. Okay, so need to drawing a spade. So how many spades? All right, so let's have a look here. So spade means here. So these are all spades. Right, so let me copy it. Going back here. Okay, all these are what we call spade. Okay. Can I just make them smaller. Okay, I put into it. Okay, right. So they're all favorable outcomes. How many of them? 13. All right. So number of favorable outcomes, 13. Total number of outcomes. So there are 52. We simplify it? Yes. Use calculator. You will get 1/4. All good? Okay, so that's how could we do the probability. Right. Okay, so there's another one. What is the probability of drawing a king on deck of 52 cards? So again, the same question. List the sample space. So there are too many of them. So we just write that 52 cards. Okay, how many kings? Alright, let's see. Oh, okay, so there are actually, okay, so these are the kings. Possibly need to rotate it. Okay, is it too large? Oh, just make it. Okay, so there are 4 kings, right? So write the rule. Number of favorable outcomes. How many of them? 4 of them. And total number. Okay, 52. Simplify the answer. Alright, that's it. Okay, so here is what we do. What we have done is the simple calculations for probability. All this probability you need to do 5 steps. Okay, sometimes 4 steps we do it, but normally you need 5 steps. Alright, so the first step is always list the sample space. You need to see how many possible outcomes. Second one, list the favorable outcome. Favorable outcome is from the question. They will ask you a particular situation, a particular event. So you need to see how many outcomes there. Okay, so if you got 2 sets of outcomes and you know the number of them, then you could use the rule. You write the rule, substitute the numbers, simplify the numbers. You got the answer. Okay, so here's a practice 1. Alright, try to do it by yourself. Alright. Okay, all good? Okay. So, okay, we'll try to finish try to do all the questions. Okay, and send your answer to me to show that you have learned something. Okay, if you have questions, you can ask. You can pose your question in the OneNote, or you send email directly to me. Okay. Okay. See you next time.